In a world that feels heavier by the day, it can be hard to find steady ground, and the emotional toll is taxing. The fight to ensure all humans have right to opportunity, dignity, and respect is the mark of a civilized society, and we cannot lose sight of the many neurodistinct people whose futures are now at risk. Our work matters now more than ever. This season finale is not just a reflection, it's a reckoning with where we are and how much farther we have to go. Hi, I'm Dr. Teresa Haskins, and welcome to Think Differently, the podcast that challenges the status quo and explores the power of neurodiversity to create a more inclusive and accessible world. Together, we will talk about everything from the value of different perspectives to the limitless potential of human beings. We'll explore how embracing differences can lead to endless possibilities and how you can maximize strengths to make a positive impact on the world. So sit back, relax, and join me as we get ready to think differently. Welcome everyone to the season finale of Think Differently. In this episode, I had originally planned on a review and wrap-up of the many guests we've had this past year. Instead, I find myself reflecting deeply, not just on the journey we've taken so far, but on the earth-shaking impacts of recent events. I am so pleased that this past season was filled with such powerful conversations and meaningful stories that really challenged us to reconsider what potential truly means, especially when it comes to people with disabilities and neurodistinctive talents. I am so grateful to every guest who shared their experiences, their wisdom, and perspectives. I really believe their voices have shaped important conversations and will continue to influence new ways of thinking for so many. But as we wrap up this chapter, I feel it's time to pivot. This isn't just about a time for reflection. It's about a reckoning with where we stand today. The message of Think Differently has always been about raising awareness about the potential in others, to help others think differently about people with neurodivergence and disabilities, and to break apart common myths and prejudice against these populations. It was meant to empower all of us, knowing that we have the ability to empower others, to create more opportunity, to create stronger communities, and help every person pursue a life of happiness and prosperity. This conversation has never been more important than it is right now. And right now, we are at a critical juncture. The world is demonstrating that it's actually less accepting, more self-centered, and increasingly reactive to misinformation and groupthink. Fear is driving decisions. People are retreating into self-preservation mode, caught in a us versus them mentality. And what happens when people become afraid? They build walls. They gatekeep. They create systems that limit rather than include. They protect themselves, often at the cost of others. This is how cavemen behaved, fighting for survival. This is not the mark of a civilized society. And if there's anything we've learned over the years in striving for autism, neuro, and disability inclusion, it's that barriers are rarely about ability. The challenge isn't that neurodistinct individuals lack skill, intelligence, or drive. It's that they're met with systematic barriers, outdated policies, and people unwilling to challenge the status quo. And I have seen this firsthand in a very personal way. Over the last few months, I've been visiting colleges, meeting with administrators, and navigating the admissions process with my autistic and gifted son. And I've realized something. The barriers to his success aren't everywhere. They exist in specific places, controlled by specific people. The gatekeepers, admissions officers, administrators, even those in disability services. Now, I understand why policies exist. They were built to create fairness, to ensure opportunity is distributed equitably. But in their attempt to equalize, they've also become rigid. And that rigidity keeps out the very people who challenge the norm. So for example, my son has completed over 52 credit hours at the very university to which he's applying. He has a 4.0 GPA at the university and has taken college senior-level math courses with ease during his high school years. Yet he was still required to take the very SAT to be considered for honors college and scholarship consideration. Now think about that for a second. The SAT exists to predict a student's ability to handle college-level coursework. But as I just said, my son has already proven himself by excelling in those very courses at the university level. And still they said, well, we'll see how he does. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Meanwhile, the professors, the people these policies are supposedly protecting to ensure only ready students are admitted, they already know him. They already want to work with him. And many of the department chairs who have taught him, they're actively competing to have him choose their field of study. And this is exactly why I do the work that I do. Because when given the opportunity and access to the people who know, the people who actually do the work, people like my son thrive. Now, while used to serve a purpose, gatekeepers are usually not the experts. They enforce rules because they were told to, not because they fully understand talent, capability, or potential. And when you get past the gatekeepers and speak with the actual experts, the professors, the managers, the leaders, they get it. They see the brilliance. They're willing to think differently because they actually understand the value of thinking differently. So the problem is he doesn't fit neatly into what the gatekeepers have been defined as the requirements for the boxes. Rather than adapting to accommodate talent like managers, leaders, and professors would, gatekeepers try to force talent to conform to their outdated systems. And if I wasn't pushing, he may have opted out. Because to people like my son, the many autistic and neurodivergent people that are asked to do things that just don't make sense, it's unnecessary busy work. Why would he have to take an SAT when he's already taking courses at college senior level? But we do these things because that's the rules. That's how things are done. And he scored so high, he's now tutoring other students, which is great. But it still begs the question, why are our systems so rigid that they actually don't make any sense? And I think that's the problem. When you talk to people, they say they want the brightest minds. They say they're seeking the top talent. And if you really mean that, then you really need to look at, are your processes actually creating those pathways? Because from what I've seen, the way things are done keep institutions average. They make odd competition against students who actually aren't competing. But it creates comfort in knowing that they're checking boxes and creating a funnel to reduce the applicant pool. But in this process, for those that are beyond the check boxes that they've already created, they could be filtering out the very genius they claim to seek. And this isn't just about higher education. It's everywhere. And this exact same thing is happening in the workforce. Organizations say they want innovation, but they cling to hiring practices that filter out the very minds that drive it. They claim they want top talent, yet they exclude highly capable individuals based on arbitrary rules, meaningless metrics, and an unwillingness to adapt. I actually know a person with a double doctorate who struggles to obtain a job because they don't engage in meaningless small talk at the beginning of an interview. It makes them appear odd. They are given feedback that they're not a good fit. But what are they being hired for? And does that lack of extroverted small talk at the beginning of an interview really mean they lack capability? Our view of social connection as typical humans is missing the point of what education and work is all about. Work and education is about outcomes. Work and education is about productivity. People are confusing culture with community. We don't go to work to make friends, we go to work to produce. And if we think about that, then we need to really consider why our methods for entry require excellent skills in communication and marketing. I didn't know we all had to be PR agents and communication specialists to write fancy resumes to get a job. Not every role demands that skill set. And if we actually accept that different jobs require different skills, then why do we continue to force a one-way path to entry as the standard for success? It really doesn't make any sense. And so this is where I believe the deeper issue lies, because people do what they've always done, what the people have done before them, because it's what they know. It's because it's what's easy. Because many managers and leaders, I don't believe, actually know how to assess whether or not somebody has the skills they're actually hiring for. It's just so much easier to talk about it. But most of us aren't hired for our public speaking skills. So if people can find a way to make space for the new and actually assess skills, then you have to start begging the question, is there a reason why we're not pursuing that? Every time I talk about skill over communication, most people agree with me, but I think it's even deeper. I think that people are afraid that if they make these changes, they might eliminate their own opportunities. I don't think they do it consciously, but most people don't want to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, the real reason behind resisting change is that we've relied on belonging and acceptance over pure skill for a long time. And what happens if we actually shifted the focuses truly to capabilities and skill and didn't rely on community and culture fit and commonality? Would an entirely new population of people rise to the top? Would the people who always had assurance of success now have a more competitive landscape, putting themselves toe-to-toe with people where they may no longer have the advantage? And let's be honest, most people do not want to make changes that would put them at a disadvantage, especially at work, because it impacts your life. And this is a deeply uncomfortable truth. I believe in my heart people do want to genuinely help others, but most will not do so to their own detriment. Let that digest. People do want to help others, but not to their own detriment. And we will continue to pack and unpack this problem in the coming season. For now, I just want to leave that there and know that there were a lot of lessons to be learned in season 2 that will continue to serve us well in the days ahead. The past seasons were not just about the voices we heard. It was about the people those voices represent, the students who feel unseen in the classroom, the employees overlooked in the workplace, and the individuals whose talents are stifled by systems never designed with them in mind. One recurring theme has been the urgency to move beyond conversations and focus on dismantling barriers. It's not about celebrating individuals who overcome challenges. It's about questioning why those challenges exist in the first place. We were all focused on getting past performative programs and making meaningful change, and here we are. Some of the rhetoric in the world sounds scary, but it does force the hand to ensure that we are doing meaningful work, and no one is using these ideas to check off boxes for appearances. But this is also a reminder that progress is fragile, and we must ensure that we regain stability to ensure neurodivergent and all other individuals have access to education and gainful employment. So when we return in the spring for season 3, we're going to go straight at the hard conversations. If it's in the news, we'll be talking about it. If it's keeping you up at night, we'll be talking about that too. I'm tired of trying to appeal to people's better side because I don't think we're always better. But I do know this. Neurodivergent people are different, not less. And I want you to say that with me. They are different, not less. And for those that are still not convinced, know that we are the Einsteins, the Teslas, the Da Vincis, outcasts until their brilliance was actualized. Not every neurodivergent person is exceptional, but they shouldn't have to be. There should be space for every person, not just the amazing few. And that is what we will do when we return. Talk about our challenges and how to make space to exist, to learn, to work, to thrive. And that means continuously challenging the status quo and being proudly divergent. Until then, take a pause, breathe. We have gained so much. And despite the noise, all is not lost. It has just made the problem statement clearer. And when we can define the problem, we can solve for it. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. I'll see you again in season 3. Thank you for listening to this episode of Think Differently. I hope you found our discussion today insightful and thought-provoking. I want to thank AudioWorks Studios for their exceptional production and recording support. Without their expertise and dedication, this podcast would not be possible. If you enjoyed this episode, we encourage you to share it with others. Your support helps us to reach new audiences and promote neurodiversity in our world. Also, be sure to subscribe to this podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite platform so that you can stay up to date on the latest episodes. We look forward to seeing you again soon on Think Differently.